Greetings, Tauvar, and I've got a lovely guest for you today. It's none other than the Jason Mckenzie, who's just beaten like 96 other players at the Smite Club Open. You came
That's right.
number one with Tau. Yes. So, I've had a lot of interest on my Discord, and they've been buzzing around, looking at your list, trying to dissect it, and be like, oh my god, Tau's like, won an event, a big major, so hats off to you. And you're not unfamiliar to me on the scene. I've seen you chipping at my heels. You've always been there, in the ranks. So, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you on board.
I'm, I'm doing great. Thanks. Yeah, I know. I'm always trying to get up there in the rankings. And in the last couple of years, I've really crossed that kind of Rubicon of getting to winning events and not being second or third place.
Yeah.
So it feels good this year to kind of be reaching that point.
Well, obviously, well deserved, mate. And obviously, you've come in and you've pulled the big W. So, hats off to you. Keep it up. All right. Are you going to LVO this year?
Yeah, I'll be going to LBL. We're only a 4-hour drive, so it's nice and easy for us here in Southern California.
Well, I'll be there, and we'll have a few beers together and celebrate the greater good in style.
I love it. Perfect.
So, let's tell the audience a little bit more about you then. So, how long have you been playing Tau for, buddy, and what drew you to the faction in the first place?
So I've been playing Tau, I on and off I've been playing for 17 years. It was my first army when I was 12 years old. Right, met a British kid in 6th grade. He's like, "Hey man, look at the skulls," and I got hooked on the big giant robots, as most of us do. So I played them for about 5-6 years. Kind of the set on the shelf for another like 5. And then over the last kind of like 5-6 years, I picked them up again and started playing Tau. I'd love to say AdMech is my usual main, but over the last 5 years, it's been a struggle, right? Just with how balanced they are. Tau is a lot more reliable,
Yeah.
And I enjoy kind of the shooting phase quite a bit. I tell people I don't goof around with the charge phase. I don't like rolling 2d6, so I like shooting people from across the table instead. So that journey has kind of been a long time coming. One day I'll be fully painted. I've always been battle ready forever, but I'm just a slow painter. But they're probably my first and last love in 40K, and they'll continue to be. And I love playing them competitively. So
Well,
it's been a long time coming.
I love the fact that me and you both pretty much collected Tau around about the same age. I was 13, and I did exactly the same as you. I was like, a British guy in a Warhammer shop was like, "Oh, you don't want to do combat? You want shooting? Here's Tau." And I was like,
Here they are.
"Big robot with sword. Put Farsight in my basket, yes please." And then went to the
Oh yeah.
PPUs.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man. I still remember. I have crisis suits that are all built like this, right? With the stuffy arms. I was gluing crisis suits to 60 mil flying bases because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Well, let's be honest. The crisis suits weren't like that. They were on the back like that because the ankles constantly snapped. And my god, the broadsides with the big metal rail guns on the top.
It's drops. You know what? I specifically remember we used to think that drones had the same wounds as the guys they protected. So we had like 2 guys in our little casual hammer group that our commanders would run around unstoppable. Now, obviously, that's not how that worked.
Yeah.
But you can't tell that to 12 and 13-year-olds.
No. I think the worst ever model that I remember owning was the commander that was like doing a slide like with his like feet, and it would just constantly bend, and he'd be like already like that, and then he ended up just almost like doing the Matrix.
That's back when all the special weapons like cyclics and airbursts were all metal.
Yep.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
Now we could talk Tau for days, but let's get on to what the people want to hear. So, you were going to the Smite Club Open. Obviously, you went with, I believe, the Retaliation Cadre.
Yep. Retaliation Cadre.
So, what was your thought process going into the event, and specifically try to zone in on your kind of list building, and maybe thinking about explaining what your kind of play style is as well, to help our listeners understand a little bit more about you and why you went through with Retaliation over, say, Kion?
Sure. So probably about 5 months ago, whenever the book dropped, I played in 2 RTTs and played in Montca, thinking that was kind of what I wanted to do, and I was struggling to. I was going like 1 and 2 at like an RTT, and I was like, you know what, this just isn't working for me. I don't know what it is, and I ended up doing some workshopping with one of the teammates, and he sends me a RetCad list, and I was like, I really like this, and I kind of put my spin on it, and it's been evolving ever since then. My play style is I play very Highlander lists, right? So I don't like having a whole bunch of 2x2, 3x3. I kind of have very specific units for very specific purposes, right? I run one Vespid squad because they do one thing. They screen rapid ingresses. That's their whole job, and that to go do secondaries on turn 4 and 5. Yeah. But I kind of came to RetCad because right now the game can be so second turn based that having the ability to respond to aggressive opponents on turn 1 and turn 2, which Kalyan currently does but doesn't have, right? Your army doesn't really activate till turn 3. And then I have so many World Eaters and like Imperial Knight players between the Southern California meta and over here on the West Coast that it's so easy to get run over if you're not prepared for it very early, which is part of the reason why I found a lot of success locally here with RetCad. Is it responds to high-level threats early in my deployment zone, just because that's probably the best way to beat Kalyan is to be in their face turn 1. So that's where I found that to be very good.
So speaking of the list, I'm just going to run through what you ended up taking. So your list was you had Cold Star with the 3 fusions and the shield generator and 2 shield drones and the Eternal Grenade Racks. And the Enforcer with the cyclic and 3 missile pods. You're giving him 2 gun drones and you're giving him the Starflare ignition. And then an Ethereal. I can understand why you're taking the Ethereal because CP in Retaliation is kind of needed. Interesting choice that you didn't take Farsight, and we'll get onto that in a second because I love that boy, the big red lad in RetCad. And then you're going with 2 units of broadsides. Now you're giving them the rails, and you're giving them the smart missile systems with the ignoring modifiers, the weapon support systems, and you've got 2 units of 2, which I like. I think it's always decent in RetCad to have that long-range fire support, just to make sure that your crisis suits aren't always having to go in danger close, so I get the logic behind that. And then you've got the Fire Knife team with all the missiles, and you've just literally loaded out with gun drones and a marker drone gun drone on the team leader because of bring it down reasons, and 2 shield drones, so 2 of them have 5 wounds, 1 of them has 4. You've got Star Scythe with all the flamers, same loadouts with the drones, and then you've got a Sunforge, same loadout with the drones, with the fusions, a single Ghost Keel with the Cyclic Riker, twin fusions, and you've got a Recruit Carnivore for that sticky objectives, just to play the I'm going to sticky and run away phase, that kind of thing. Exactly. And a Pathfinder team with the usual, but there's one slight thing that you've done differently, which you've given them the Grab Inhibitor drone to take a little bit of element of that Kion -2. Just to kind of make those charges. You've already mentioned World Eaters, so I can see already the logic of like, just nope, just make it harder for them to connect. And you've gone with the 3 iron rifles and the 2 gun drones. And then you've got a single Piranha with the Fusion and the Seekers, 2 iron Riptides with the usual missile drones, but you've gone with a Fusion to really make benefit of that +1 strength and potentially +1 AP, depending on how aggressive. And then the typical 3 stealths and a Vespid, and you've already said to block out rapid ingress. So what I want to say is, why didn't you take Farsight in the list, out of curiosity?
So I was trying to slot Farsight in for a while because I felt that with the list I had built, prior to this list, I was running a Hammerhead, a Skyray, and 1 more Ghost Keel. And I ended up swapping in for the 2 squads of 2 broadsides and the star sides. I tend to 3-inch deep strike the star sides.
Yeah.
So I thought, maybe Farsight works there. I just find that unit never lives long enough for me to find him useful. And the utility I get out of the kind of Cold Star Commander, and for my playstyle, matches what I do better than it would be with Farsight.
Okay.
I like Farsight. I like the element he brings. See, right, the -1 CP. It makes the army a little less CP hungry, but I find the internal grenade rack to be invariably more useful for what this army wants to do.
Okay. And I suppose when we go through the pairings, just maybe tell us a little bit more about how you utilize that grenade racks, because it's been one of the kind of, should we say, bone of contentions. It's like, is it worth it? Is it too hard to pull off? It's still quite, when it comes to building Tau lists, you and I will both know that that extra 15 to 20 points at the end can be really annoying, or sometimes your list goes over by a little bit, and it's just, if I have the points for it, I'll put it in, but I'm sure you've got some tactical plays within your pairings that you went up against that you could explain a little bit more about it. Now, the other things that I found interesting in your list, I do like the ghost keel, and I have played around with putting multiple ghost keels in, and I've come to the kind of conclusion that even though their damage can be considered anemic, I like what it does for the Retcad because it forces your opponent towards you, which is what you want. And I don't know if that's a similar sort of idea that you had with the Ghost Keel. Would you say that's pretty much kind of where it's sat in your list and the reason why you took it?
100%. And I had two at one point, but I found the second one was getting diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm having trouble killing a lot of heavily armored stuff. So I'd rather take a unit of 2 broadsides over the second ghost keel. I like what it brought, but it kind of just brought the same thing, right, on like a middle objective. It just didn't do enough for me.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting from my perspective is I've been umming and ahhing about the broadside's other gun, whether it be Seekers or whether it be SMS. I do like the added pressure that the smart missiles can add to those small little trading pieces, but I found it being a big question mark in Retcad because you can always dig out those units, whether it be 3-inch Deep Strike, Flame of Star Scythe, or whether it be just Missile Mander jumping up and down and going around the board and taking away their scoring pieces. So, did you find that you missed the Seekers, or did you think after the event I could have done with them?
Oh no, I'm very happy with the SMS.
Yeah.
Because Red Cat has a very specific problem in that it doesn't have volume.
Yeah.
It has volume, but it has very specific volume, right? One unit's going to get sustained 2, sustained 1 against the units that you wanted to. The Torch Stars bring that volume that I didn't have, 2 months ago. But if you go fight, I'll give you a great example is GSC, right? GSC, one broadside squad can one-shot a GSC unit. Without SMS, it probably doesn't. And getting them down to that 1-2 man and just eliminating them, forcing them to roll dice is usually my solution to that. I have found that the SMS comes up a lot into Eldar. We have a lot of Eldar here. People love playing elves in my other country, right? And it's just kind of how it is. So having 16 SMS that ignore modifiers to hit, they hit on 4s, right? The 5s if you're being spotted for, right? But with the twin links, right? Killing 2. The best example is it came up a couple times into the Yonari I played on round 5. The Starsides killed 1 unit of his Drukari Haywire blasters, right? He got down to 1 guy, and the SMS picked up the last dude, right? And 1 Haywire model into an army of Tau is like I'm losing a crisis suit every turn from 1 model, right? So
it's good. And it's that kind of like for those listeners out there wondering, oh, why SMS? It's literally that. It's I want to be able to pick out these units that are going to be annoying, units that can fire and fade. So Eldar is a perfect example. And then the GSC is a really interesting one that you mentioned and actually resonates with me because I have a certain person that's gunning for my title in the ITC, it's Innis, and he's playing GSC. So it's definitely something that I'm like, I have the tech, and I think Tau, and I'm sure you agree, isn't the most powerful codex out there, but it's definitely one of the most balanced codex that can have an answer to a lot of the meta problems that we either see right now or will see in the future. So I think we're in a good position for teching towards what is going to be inevitably the contenders for potentially podiuming or winning an event. So you've cleverly designed your list with that in mind. My other thing before we go on to the pairings is that Riptide's big question mark. And let's make a statement. We all know Riptides are solid. And like Triptide is eternal. But in Retcad, I've had mixed results with them and just looking at them and going, I don't think I want you. I want more suits. Or I want more stuff. So talk to me. Riptides, did they perform? Do you see them being a necessity in Retcad, or could you see a list without them?
I think you can play without them, but I think that you're losing a little bit of mid-table and expansion objective presence. I find they're really good at standing on your kind of secondary objective, and then going, hey, I've got some stealth suits and maybe a crude on the point after a first turn scout. You got to deal with all this to kill it. And the nature of it, I think, is once you really get to high level, 4-up invulns, you always have to over allocate into, right? Because what happens is you just casually roll 4 out of 5 invulns. I know, to skip a little bit, right? In my Imperial Guard game, Riptide #1 absolutely won me that game, just because of the fact that he stood there, took hits from guard like a champ, like charged some of the we'll get to it later, but he stood there on a point and he rolled 4 invulns, and that's all I needed him to do, right? Sometimes that's what you need, right? And sure, you could get that out of another Sunforged unit for the same amount of wounds, less toughness, but people look at Riptides and the 2-up armor with you, and you have cover into things like Sisters. If they don't allocate Meltas, I've got 3-up armor saves on the second Castigator activation. Right, and if they're not ignoring cover, I mean, I'm just rolling 3-ups against your 3 damage. You're probably not going to kill me. Right, so that's where I find that to be very useful. It's a little bit of a specific role, and they're extremely good in the Blood Angel matchup, which is why I like them so much. Because Blood Angels is kind of, for Retcad, I love the matchup. Because I can jump around the Blood Angels charge phase, right? You move 12, and then, your threat range is another 12, so I'm just going to stand at 24.1, right? But then you got to deal with the Lamarty's unit at some point, and I've got a great example of why the Riptide is fantastic in the Blood Angels. So I think for what I'm running, it's a necessity, because I think one ghost kill is easy enough to kill on an expansion objective if they allocate enough into it. Killing a ghost kill and a Riptide is usually enough to get them to overcommit, and I can respond immediately.
Yeah, so your strategy with these is pretty much to pair them up and go, come get some. And then in come the red dots from the sky. That perfect artwork where you got like White Scar bikes driving, and there's those crisis suits dropping down and be like, yo, bitch.
That's exactly what it is. And then a little bit uppy downy with the Enforcer Commander. And you've got a recipe for holding 2 objectives very reliably all game.
Perfect. Right then, so before we go into the pairings, what was your, I suppose, planning stage looking like? So you planned your list, and did you go in with any expectations for a start? As a known player, I asked this quite a lot. And what were your expectations going into the event? What was your goal?
So, I mean, quite frankly, my goal was to, we're very good friends with our friends over at Smite Club over in Arizona. I was making the joke with the team that, hey, man, I'm going to go show up at your turf and I'm going to go win your event. Because I won Scorched Turf last year, and I was like, I couldn't make it to last year's Smite Club, so I was able to make it out this year. And we're friends with Making Saves out there, a bunch of great guys and great gals, and my goal simply was to show up and go win the event. That's how I approach every probably event I go to these days. I feel like I'm settling for X and 1. I'll be happy, but the 6-0 is my ultimate goal, right? But as like with every event, going into it, playing a nice, clean gameplay, and kind of intent. I'm a very intent-based player, right? I start all my games off by putting my hand out to shake, and I tell hey, I'm a very straight shooter. I'm easygoing. If you say you're going to do something, you forget to do it, and you laid your plan out to do it, just do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like if someone says, hey, I want to measure here, we measure 7 inches, you can do it, and then we're in the assault phase and you forgot to do it, just do it, man. Like, I'm not going to win because you forgot to do something and we've been awake for 2 days and your back hurts. Like we're all people, right?
Yeah.
We're playing a miniatures game. This is not like this. It's harder than competitive Scrabble, but I want to beat you because I'm better than you, not because you forgot to do something.
Yeah, and I like that about like generally the evolution of the competitive space in 40k. It's a big emphasis on the sportsmanship, and at the end of the day, a maturer audience go into it going, we are just playing toy soldiers, we are spending money, we're drinking beer, we're having a laugh. It's nice to win and all, and it's nice to have some success that you can become proud of and aim for. But at the end of the day, you're not gonna put you're not gonna do it to the detriment of being an ass. Like, you're just gonna play it fair. Make sure everything's above board and have a good time with your opponent because you're spending 3 hours with them times however many rounds. So, it's really good to play that way. And hats off to you. So you've done it. You plan to win. You've boasted a little bit about how you're going to win. You've played the right way, and then you've won. So it's like an all-round big tick. So congratulations, buddy, from another Chasso to another. Proud of you. Well done. Now, the planning stage. Speaking of like that mindset of like, I'm going to go in it to win it, what were some of the key things you would pass on to our listeners to say, look, this is what my process was? What advice would you give out there for the planning stage of going to a big event or trying to take the big W?
Absolutely. The new resource I've used that's extremely elevated my play personally. I was very anti tabletop simulator, and I was just uncomfortable with playing it, and eventually I said, Jason, like, you're gonna have to suck it up and play TTS at some point if you want to evolve to the next level. And once I did that, I mean, my game has changed so much. What I would suggest to any kind of Tau players, Chassos looking to get better, is that before you go to an event, and I did this, I set up every round in TTS because they were doing Games Workshop maps, right? I'm sure they do the same thing with UKTC. I have all the WTC maps, same thing.
Everything,
and plan out what your deployments potentially would look like, right? A very specific thing is the broadsides. Look, broadsides are hard to use, like 100%. The first 2-3 games I had with them, I had no freaking clue what I was doing, right? Because they move 5 inches, and if you're not in Mon Ca, they don't move further than that, right? So sitting down and planning, let's say an army like a great example. I played Votann round 1. Right. If I'm playing a shooting army, odds are I'm in a strategic 1 unit of broadsides, if the table allows me to. And I can tell you, I knew exactly where I was going to strategic before that game even started. And that was because I had set it up in TTS, right? For example, in Games Workshop layout number 1, where the 2 little triangles are in the middle, there's a spot next to the crate that typically people like to hold that side objective, their expansion objective, with 1 to 2 models behind to hide as much as possible. Guess where 2 broadsides can see if they strategic turn to? With that exact spot.
Yeah.
Right? So in knowing exactly where I need to put a stealth suit to advance to get a spot there, right, is that, right? A good habit I would tell people getting in a very good mindset to get into, before I start any turn, I do all my command phase items. I get a tally of what my spotter demands are. Because I having very specific phase, because we're locked in one phase in the shooting phase, unless you have Farsight, you're kind of stuck to very limited options to how you order your turn. And understanding how many spot you needs, what you're going to prioritize on those spotters, right? Because not all spots are built equal for stealth suits. And understanding who gets priority is really something you want to practice or understand in your list. Who wants reroll 1s to wound? Who needs it, right? And how you want to order your turn. That kind of practice, to me, is probably most important. So, because if I hadn't known exactly where my broadside wanted to stand or deploy turn 1, they can get stuck somewhere for 2 turns. And knowing where I want to put them and where they're going to respond to was something I did all in TTS. I took a screenshot of every map layout, and I would drop it in a Google Doc. I share it with the teammates I go with. And then just at work, I'll sit there and screw around with it and say, oh, I'm going to put stuff here, 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 here. So I can't play TTS from the office, but I can study the maps and where I want to deploy.
And I think you've hit the 2 key things that I've spoken to many Tau players, now with you included. Both myself, Tony, who I interviewed last week, and yourself have had a similar trend to their process, which is I analyze the maps. Okay, which has obviously clearly influenced my list, And then I'm
Yep.
also looking at my priorities and where stuff can go, and then the guiding mechanic and the setting, because it's not easy. As much as like
No.
the opposing players, like, oh, Tau, you just shoot good gun and bam, bam, bam. It's like, you have to really hold back and be like, I want to slap you, but I'm just going to let that one slide. Because it's so strenuous in terms of I have to set up this thing here, think about their next turn, think about where I want to be, so on and so forth, guiding, double guiding, priority, setting up redundancies, so on and so forth. So that advice of pre-planning, that even just basic deployment and guiding takes so much pressure off. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head, and clearly it works, right? You're hearing it from multiple people. This planning stage is so important for Tau. So you mentioned you went into Votann round 1. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through your pairings, and I'm just kind of briefly going to... I love the fact that it says there's 12 days and 5 hours and 22 overlap time for the event. Right, so pairings round 1. Jason, okay. So you're against Killen Minton with his Votann, and his list was your double Iron Here champion. You've got the triple Iron Here champion, one with the Wayfarer's Grace to get back up on a 2, and I think it's on a 2+. Your typical unit of 10 warriors that are going to split. He's got 2 Sagitors, 5 Berserks, and then he's got mass Hearthguard 10, 5, and 5. 2 land forts. 3 bikes, 3 bikes, 3 bikes. So the 3 units of bikes are there for mission play. The 2 land forts just stand there as big Tonka trucks and go, hey! And then it's obviously going to have the 2 units of 5 Hearthguard with the Iron Here champions in there. And then the 10-man will be the deep striking unit. 5 Berserks will go into a Sagittor. 5 of the 10 warriors will go into Sagittor, and the other 5 will stay on a home field and sticky. Is that pretty much kind of like sum up what he did?
Yeah, and I ended up getting first turn that game, so he couldn't like Hernkin pioneer me. But he had like 3x3 bikes, which he was using to hold points and do secondaries. Votann plays a very honest game of 40k.
Yeah.
Right. Is how I see Votann. Right. I get +1 to hit. I get +1 to wound. If I could see you with a couple of units, I'm probably killing you.
Yeah. So what was your prior? Well, what in your head when you're going this pairing? Like, obviously, what mission were you playing?
I think this one was, I want to say it was a linchpin and tipping point.
Okay, so linchpin, you just focused on holding your home field and holding one objective in no man's land to get the extra points. Right. Cool.
Yep.
What was your priorities that you wanted to kill in this? What did you think, right, look at this list, need to kill these, and then this is going to massively put the game in my hands? What was that kind of thought process looking like for you?
So first turn, if I had first turn, I was going to just throw my Kroot to the wind, let him sticky the initial point, and then I'm just going to go move block all of his Sagittars.
Yeah.
Right. The way that layout 1 works is if you plant a Piranha, basically right there at that little L shape of where they're going to stick half their army in, they can't go beyond that point. Right, they're just stuck there. Right, so Piranha moves up. Piranha gets in that little nook, and then the Kroot charge into his Hernkin that he had moved up. I leave a dude on the point. Right, and now he's got to spend 1 CP to fall back and shoot me.
Yeah.
He's not doing with something else. Right, and he has to put that unit in the middle of the table. So for me, it was kind of a win-win that he basically lost an entire first turn. Just to that, right? He can't touch the Ghost Keel. So I know I've got turn 1, I'm going to go into some good primary. I'm going to take some secondaries I can prep for. The big focus of that game was keeping a kind of management. He had put both the Terminators, so to speak, up the sky. So that game was all going to be about blocking that rapid ingress.
Yeah.
Just their guns are only 18 inches, right? And it's all dev wounds, but they really want to be in combat. As much as they love shooting, I'm going to give them crap to shoot at for a couple turns. And then basically I had the Vespid staged up so that every turn they were just rolling at a nice big advance roll, staying out of somebody's really spooky Overwatch, or he's only shooting me with like 10, 12 shots, and just kind of blocking that rapid ingress. And I forced him to come behind his buildings every turn.
Yeah.
So that he was never getting a good bead on a suit unit. So every time he'd plant a unit down, I'd have 3 CP budgeted for a 3-inch deep strike. So I'd get, AP2 on all my missiles that are 2 damage, right? And because because the big unit is a 10-man with a commander in it, I'm going, cool, sustain 2, baby, right? So every time he'd come down, I would just blow up a Terminator squad. And once those 2 squads were dead on turn 3, I don't care about land forts. Land forts can go hold a point, right? The best part about broadsides is that this is my favorite breakpoint to tell people. I go, oh, you got within 12 and your toughness 12? Cool, I wouldn't you on 3s now? And they're like, huh?
Yep. And and like the other missiles, like I think the land fort is T11?
It's T12. It's T12. So everything else wounds on 5s.
Yeah.
But but there's a lot of nice breakpoints because of like the toughness you get on, right? So SMS all of a sudden wound those models on 4s rerolling, right? And when he got up in my face, like tagged the broadsides, I'm like, okay, well, I'm now AP2 and AP1. Like, please, yeah, pile in by all means. I ignore modifiers to hit. I don't care.
Just shoot them in the face, and if there's any left, just hit them with the end of the railgun.
pretty much, right? So kind of once I dealt with the Terminators, that I kind of had that match relatively locked down. Just because he lost an entire turn 1 just by being move blocked. So unfortunately, he really didn't get his game started till turn 3, and by that point, I had created such a differential, right? Because if you go first, especially with Retcad, in my opinion, you either have to set the pace pretty early that, hey, you got to come out here and deal with me, or I'm just going to keep scoring points. Right, because second turn is just so critical right now that you I have no battle line. If you have a ton of battle line in like a Magnus, I'm probably not stopping your secret mission. I just have to kind of play around that.
Yeah, and I think just to echo what you said, like Votann, they're an honest army. They shoot good, they combat good, but they are still movement dwarf. So Tau being a mobile army, you did the right thing, block them in. Don't really get obsessed about trying to kill the land forts, just kill everything else and then he can't do the mission. So you won comfortably 85 to 58, and then you moved into your round 2 when you were against Eldari. So Eldari, let me just double check the list that you were going against. It was... Oh, where was it? I had it open.
Yeah, I think it was an Avatar Kane, Double Falcon, Double Fire Prism, and he had some Dire Avengers and Azerman. It's probably a little off the wall, the usual Eldar list. This matchup was, he fundamentally, I don't think, understood what Retcad did.
Yeah.
So quite frankly, he kind of threw his Eldar army at me, and I was a little confused. I was like, I mean, hey, okay, come to me, sure. Right, so this matchup, I just don't think he had that kind of experience. So it was, I budgeted my to any budding commander out there struggling to kill avatars, right? The fusion 3-inch deep strike, or if setting them up properly, right, is amazing, right? The D6 plus 2, half damage happens before modifiers, right? Yeah. So every melta you get through is minimum 3 damage. You talked about you mentioned the internal grenade racks. This is exactly where it shines, right? 4 pinvals are an absolute pain in the ass to get through, but on a model that has damage that doesn't have a field of pain, oh, he's -1 to wound. Cool, I don't care. I'm gonna grenade you 3 times in 1 turn. So I basically set it up so I rapid ingressed 10.9 away. And because he's a monster, he's got to go around things, and so do I. So I was like, look, you can risk rolling the 11 essentially, or I'm just gonna move 1 CP grenade you, right? Because I don't want to get charged. I think I actually came outside of 12, and then I'm gonna Torch Star Gambit if my fusions don't kill you, right? So, and on a 14 wound model, that's effectively only 8 wounds I have to get through. So once the Avatar of Kane was dead, he really didn't have a whole I have a 4-up invul against fire prisms. 4 hits, 4 wounds. You're killing 2 suits with that.
Yeah.
On average, and that's if they don't that's if they connect with everything, right?
Yeah, so I like the emphasis on the you rapid ingress 10.9 away. So then obviously you can go cool, move, grenade you for moving over you, then spend a CP to grenade you, and then Torchstar Gambit and grenade you again. So statistically, you're doing 9 mortal wounds to something without a feel no pain. And if it's got a feel no pain, you're doing 6. So even if you're going into Catan's, you're still doing an average of 6, which is half of their wounds almost. So you're like, cool, there's reliable damage, but you have to plan for it for both the rapid ingress, so utilising the stealth suits for free, and then banking your CP to do the 2 CP, which is going to be, Fire and Fade and grenades. So, no, I like it, and it's definitely something that people do not predict, and they're like, you can do what now? It's like, it's almost like if your Cold Star had a raincoat on, he opens it up and it's just an internal loads of grenades. Like, excuse me, sir, can I interest you in some grenades?
I told the Knights player around 4 about it. He goes, oh yeah, sure, of course, right? And then when I do it, he's like, wait, I need you to explain this to people over time. I don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
Well, in mastering the stealth suit rapid ingress, you never need to spend 2 CP on that unit if you set up your turn correctly. Now, if they put stuff in position to be able to, respond to something like that, obviously it's not as easy, right? But like if they leave a beautiful gap, like on a part of the board that you can just rapid ingress to, just do it for 1 CP, even if it's not within range. Yeah. You're saving yourself the 3-inch deep strike CP because the 2 CP is a steep investment. And I'd rather do that with my Star Scythe unit and not that squad, if I can afford to.
Yeah. And like just looking at the list, you mentioned obviously it's got Azraman, it's got the Wayleaper, the Phoenix Gem to come back alive, Effigy, which is basically Avatar of Kenny, just giving it a funny name. Farseer, Janezar, Guardians, Wave Serpent, Dire Avenger unit of 10, Falcon. Now the Falcon has that funky thing where basically it shoots you, they get out, they get to reroll wounds, I think, against you and stuff like that. So then the fire prisms just basically link up, so one shoots you, the other can fire through it. Howling Banshees do combat things. Rangers, infiltrating unit. Striking Scorpion, Swooping Hawks, Viper. So yeah, he definitely had good anti-tank, but not a lot of stuff. Like, it was missing the MSU stuff, and you can just easily plink away at that. You've got the speed. They hate 3-inch deep strikes because they don't have pieces to block out the board, so you just basically pick them apart. And that victory for you, I believe, was let me have a look. It was 88 to 38. So from a WTC perspective, that's a 19-1 because you just needed that 1 extra point to get the 20-0. Come on, Jason, you're slacking. Where was that extra point? So, yeah, outstanding victory there. And then, you must be feeling pretty good at this point, right? You're 2-0. You've, won against Votann. Then you've obviously teched for Eldar. You beat Eldar. Let's have a look at what you're going into next. Astra Militarum. Not an easy matchup. Both Guard and Tau players are like, ooh, it can go either way. But the one thing that is definitely a cancer within the 40k at the moment is Bulgarin and Sisters of Battle. The entire Sisters of Battle army. But Bulgarin are annoying. So let's have a look at this guy's list. Now, the guy's John, what was it called? Taylor John Morton. So he had Gaunt's Ghost, 100-point reliable unit to go and do secondaries and do shenanigans. Lord Solar, he's always in every goddamn list. Platoon Commander, Tank Commander, the Demolition Cannon, but basically Tank Commander shoot on death. So a bit of an annoying thing to have to deal with. 2 Catachan, 3 Catachan, 4 Catachan Jungle Fighter units, so 55 points of just, hey, I'm going to exist, I've got scout moves, I'm trading, they got flamers. A Bulgrin squad, he's only got 6 Bulgrin, right? What is he thinking? Take 18. My God, just take 18.
We'll get to where those points are and why it was a problem.
Yeah, and this is what you're on about. Yep. 3 Rogel Dawn battle tanks. What a chad. These things are annoying, and they are actually being used more. They're more common, especially with the current meta that I found. The meta is definitely turning into a tank-heavy meta. And, hey, let's just bring 3 Rogel Dawns that each have a blank. They have lots of shots, and 18 wounds at T11 or something like that with the
T12,
T12.
which is very important for the broadsides. Yeah.
So you were looking at these broadsides going, hey guys, right, I need you to perform this game. And then he's got 2 Scout Sentinels, he's got a small 2 units of Temper Scions. They're good for like dropping in, doing a bit of chip damage, but I'm also noticing with Guard at the moment, these big units of 10 Temper Scions with the Temper Scion command squad going in. But this list is very much centered around, here's my tank commander, here's my 3 Rogel Dawns, and here's loads of infantry. So it's stat checking you on the tank front and at least making you work for deleting their scoring pieces. So what was your thoughts going into this matchup? What was your priority, and what were your worries, I suppose?
No, I knew this was probably one of the hardest matchups of the weekend. Triple Dorn's just hard to deal with because it does so much damage back to me, right, at 1 AP2, and he had the extra AP Leman Russ. So, like, even with a 2-up armor save at 3 damage a pop, right, I can shoot at him from long range, but he can stand in the middle better than I can. The only having 6 Bulgrin, that was nice. The weekend prior to different GT, I had fought 18 Bulgrin and I eked that game out by 1 point. Like, it was a struggle. And this game did not start off well. I got first turn, unfortunately, and it's Scorched Earth. So I'm like, well, shit. So he's got 1 Dorn exposed, and I'm like, you know what? I've got an opportunity here. I've got first turn. We'll put the Ghost Keel where I usually do. He's gonna have to come work for it, but I'm gonna shoot this first Dorn, right? I'm gonna get it to half health, whatever, right? And the most nonsensical thing happens. I rolled like 2 2s to hit with. I even set up a stealth team to spot, right? I hit twice. I get a dev wound to wound through, right? He zeroes out the dev wound. Just raw dogs the 6-up. On the second broadside, okay? The Riptide then activates dev wounds. I have a beat of the Riptide, and I get 3 wounds through. Rolls triple 5-ups. So I do zero damage to this door in turn 1, and I'm just like, oh.
Hey, don't worry about
so
that.
I'm like,
you made him use his blank. Come on, it's not all that.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? So I'm like wetting my pants at this point, right? The Dorn should have taken like 13 damage or something like that, right? I should do something, right? And so I have to Torch Star Gambit the Riptide back so he doesn't get lit up to high hell, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm already at a bad spot here. Luckily, I drew like Area Denial, Extend Battle Lines turn 1, and just put my Piranha in the middle of the table. And I was like, okay, well, we're doing it on secondary, so I'll take that. Like, that's a moral victory, right? And, you know, I always say that 40K tends to would have it's easy to get frustrated over bad dice rolls, but throughout the course of a 5-turn game, it will usually come back to you. Not always, but it usually comes back to it in some form. And I'll get to how this game ended is where it came back. So I would play real cagey with my Riptides the whole time, right? And basically there's 2 big firing lanes, and I was keeping my important Gribblies in the kind of the little L shape, making them have to come out, right? So every time he'd bring a Dorn in or a Russ, I would just blow it up with fusion blasters, right? And then Torch Star Gambit behind the building, right? So I was kind of just playing the whole 2-all game and then like throw everything at him on turn 5 so he has horrible action economy, and he's struggling to kill the last of my units. The Dorns kind of, the Dorns did Dorn things. I ignored his second objective and I just played for as many points as I could score all game. The problem is that if he stood anywhere that wasn't behind terrain, I basically would light him up, right? Because broadsides, I would stick in a very specific point to where only one model ever could see me, where we could shoot each other because he's a large model and I can see through myself. But if you put a Leman Russ behind his Dorn, he can't see through his Dorn. Right, so I set up a very specific angle so that only one thing could see me at a time, and it's right there where the crate and the kind of your home objective cover is, right? So he was getting limited shots into me, right? I would just go throw 6 OC on his point, right? I threw like Vespids and I think Torch Star Gam did a stealth suit onto his, so I put him on like 5 primary 1 turn, right? And I managed to stave that off long enough. So we kept going back and forth, and on the last turn, so turn 5, so I've lost my Ret Catalyst has only lost like in singles like one game in the last like 24 games, and it was to one of my teammates, Steven Corrales, and he's playing Dark Angels, and we played the Ritual. Right, so it's like the most draw 95-95 game ever, right? Comes down to who draws better secondaries. In turn 5, he goes, Jason, I'm just going to plan for every secondary you have, right? He opened up, what the deck that's left in ITC battles and literally planned for every single one of them, right? And of course, I drew Mark for Death into Assassinate, right? And he's got all of his characters hidden and everything's behind terrain, right? And then I draw behind enemy lines and he wins by 1 point. And I'm like...
Well,
so
I just want to add to that what you just said. You've literally just made my point that I made in the previous video about the Ritual is the drawish mission. It comes down to whoever draws better secondaries. But I don't know if you watched it, but my solution to this is super cheeky. So you play that Ritual again versus your mate and tell him not to watch this video, right? And then do it to him. Don't spawn an objective on turn 3. Spawn one on turn 2. Spawn one on 4 and 5. Let them spawn. He gets ahead on primary. You do secret mission and broken wall, and he can't get the secret mission because he's ahead. And then it's no longer about who gets better secondaries because you'll get more primaries.
Oh, jeez. Well, we ended 95-93, so if I secret mission, I actually lose. Right? That's the same. We scored so much primary in the game that it was like it came down to who. I was playing for a tie at one point. So, right? So I adopted the same philosophy in this guard game. So I said, "What's left in your deck?" And I'm like, "Well, screw it. I'm just going to throw my Riptides to your Bulgrin," because he was using the Bulgrin all game to screen out the 3-inch deep strike on his like guard squad, which actually is not a bad play, because if that fire knife unit can 3-inch on the guard unit, if I have I don't even need a spotter. At AP2, if they're not using their order to do take cover or whatever it is, all I'm going to do is I'm going to blow up his entire order brigade, and all 3 Dorns lose +1 to hit.
Yeah.
It's worth throwing away that unit just to do that. Even better if there's no retaliation back. So I actually think he did a good job there, because that unit will get one shot by that squad. I've done it over and over and over again. So I charged the Riptide into his Bulgrin, who are like strung out in like an L shape, right? And I'm like, I've got like 4 wounds left, and I'm like, this is dicey, but if I do it, he can't stop me from burning my expansion objective. Or he's got to work extremely hard to get to it, right? I stack like 20 OC on my point. My stealth suits are as corner caddied as I can get from getting shot by like the Dorn that's left alive and the 2 Leman Russes. The Ripped, he wounds me 5 times with 2 dudes on 5s. I then bust out 4 out of 5 invuls, right? And the Riptide like beats his chest, right? And very specifically, the reason I charged him is that now he's stuck piling and consolidating. His last Bulgrin before the pile and consolidate was, I think, he was like 11.8 from the edge. So with the pile and consolidate, he had containment. But with the 6 inches you get from a pile and consolidate, he's still wholly within he's still partially within his deployment zone. He can't do containment with that unit, because he has to fall back, right? If he kills the Riptide, right, just in shooting, he can still do it. But because he's still partially within his deployment, guess what he draws? Containment. Hey. So he only gets 3 points on that, right? So because of that, he was playing for a loss. He goes, well, I guess I'm just going to redraw the card, right? He redraws the card to behind. So now, because of that, he's playing for a tie. He moves Leontis. He goes like 15 inches. He bombs the like 11-inch charge, just casually rolls double 6s without a CP reroll, right? I Overwatch with the 2 star sides, like within like Overwatch range, kill 12 guardsmen, right? And then somehow and they're Catachans, right? It's a Catachan squad, right? So I kill the Catachans out, so he no longer is AP3 in combat. Right, he gets like 4 wounds with Leontis. The stealth suits roll 2 5s. He can't kill the stealth suits anymore. The stealth suits finish burning, and I win by like 5 points. It was an insane end of game. But I'd say, but that because it's such an extremely tight matchup that if you're playing Tau at a high level and you're going first turn, you have to plan for burning on like turn 4, turn 5.
Yes.
Right. And in prepping for that, like a turn ahead or making sure you know what their options are available is so important because going second is so strong on that mission.
100%. So it sounds like an absolute slobber knocker of a game, and it forced you to actually play extremely tactically, and you did. And the cards thing is something that everybody needs to take note of. Planning for your cards in various ways, whether you say to your opponent, look, I'm just going to have a look at what's in my deck, and then you can reshuffle them after I've done so, just to make sure that you're not like thinking I'm cheating, just to have a look, or have a sheet next to you with them not written down, or have a look on the app. Just plan for what secondary is, because it's hugely important in a tight game. So well done on that one. Then you're like, oh my god, I'm knackered. Okay, cool, that was a really tight game. And then it looks like you had another tight game because you were going against Imperial Knights, and it was an 86-82 victory. But let's have a look at quick list check. He had a big Cereros Knight, a 2 and a Lancer, Warglaive, lol, standard, and then Caladius Assassin and Eversaur Assassin for that sweet Scout 9 and that cheeky, I'm going to go in and charge, and then the Caladius is just doing secondaries, blah, 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 blah. So, what was your approach going into this? It's lots of tanks, lots of annoying profiles, and lots of OC. So that's going to cause you a problem. So, what was your plan in this one?
Yeah, so I usually don't take Bring It Down, and I feel like maybe I should have here, but at the same time, every time I take it, I regret it, so I didn't.
Yeah.
So in this match, it was hidden supplies, so I was like, well, if I go first or second, I'm probably doing well on primary. If I go first, I'm very well positioned in the Knights to, pick up like 3 small Knights turn 1. He deployed his whole army on the line. My plan in the Knights really is to win turns 4 and 5. I can't tell you how many times I've been snuffed by the 4-up invul, especially on the Lancer.
Yeah.
It's part of the reason I specifically have broadsides. I had a Hammerhead and a Skyray before, but then you get on this absolute high when you just like double drop like 2 dev wounds somewhere in the mix on top of everything else. You go, cool. Well, the math on the Knight matchup is really goofy because I've lost specifically the 2 Knights just playing casual Hammer at the house because of the fact that they have a 4-up invul, right? If they spike 4 out of 5 invuls, all of a sudden you do no damage, right? And your 280 point investment in a Hammerhead Skyray do nothing. So having the broadsides that when they get close wound on 3s and dev wounds that get through, right, and reliable 5 to 6 damage every time they activate is really good in that matchup. I kind of was just playing for turn 4, honestly. He deployed all the stuff on the line. He was kind of a YOLO Knight player. He gets first turn, advances literally everything into my deployment zone, and I'm just like, oh, geez, he knows how to play this matchup for sure, unfortunately. So, you're right. I give him a charge anchor on the Vespids specifically so that he'll charge it with the Lancer, and then everything is now within Melta and +1 to wound range essentially for the broadsides, right? And they did exactly that, right? So I picked up the Lancer turn 1. The only problem is he had an Atropos, and Atroposes ubiquitously, they just hit on 2s all game. It's so annoying. And that Atropos, I would definitely contribute. There was he could not roll to hit on that Atropos like to save his life, but every time a War Dog activated, or whatever they call him, he would hit and wound twice with every damn Meltagun in his army. I swear. So I lost. So turn 1, I lost. His Atropos does 0 right. 1 shot, he misses. Right. 1 shot on the Graviton, misses again. And I was like, okay, well, I'll take that. And then like 10 of his Meltas proceed to hit and wound. I fail like 7 of them. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess it evens out somewhere, right? I killed the Lancer and like 2 of his, whatever. I keep calling them War Dogs, but I killed 2 little Knights somewhere, right? And I get like 2 of them down to like 3 wounds, and they operate pretty much just as well there as they would any other time, right? So I was really scraping by the whole match. There was some luck back and forth, right? Turn 3, he about made every damn invul I threw at him. And then he goes, he misses with almost every shot he shoots at me. So we just kind of stood there for a turn, like standing awkwardly at each other where nothing happened. Right. And then a very critical roll where he's got a knight on 3 wounds left. And I was like, well, screw it. I'm going to overwatch with my broadsides. Like, I got to go for the lucky roll here. Right. Hit with a broadside. I dev wound with it, do exactly 3 damage, fails all 3 Feel Pains, and it unlocked a huge potential to blow the match out. I ended up holding another objective. The Ghost Keel lives because of it.
Yeah.
There was a huge swing when that started to happen because I thought he had me. I was like, there was a moment I 3-inch steep struck the missile unit on a 10 wound Little Knight and didn't kill it with 4 rolls to hit and reroll 1s to wound. Or whatever, reroll 1s to hit because he was damaged, right? And he got to 2 wounds. He made 6 4-up armor saves and there's 2 damage, and I'm like,
come on.
Oh geez, right? So I'm sweating bullets, right? It ends up working out, right? Because he charges me and doesn't kill my commander, right? And we hit such a swingy dice game. Honestly, that match is usually really close because of rotate ion shields. And Lancers just natively have a 4-up. So any other priority target, 2 things are always going to have a 4-up invul every turn.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to plan around that. Or make it so you have 3 targets to shoot at once if the Lancer's still alive. But I was kind of hanging by the seat of my pants on that one, if I'm being honest. He did the exact thing he was supposed to. I had a Lancer and 3 Little Knights in my deployment zone, turn 1. And I was just oh man, I got to deal with this somehow.
Yeah.
And managed to do it.
Well, yeah, it's one of those ones where the matchup with such a stat checklist like Knights is going to be close, and your damage either connects or it doesn't, and you'll feel it. And then you obviously got a little bit of a break when his damage didn't connect, because I'm pretty sure if his damage connect, you're going to be then playing for the loss or trying to claw out of it. So 86-82, another close game. But again, right, the dream is still alive, you're 4-0, and then what looks like, and what we'll do is we'll try to skim through these, because I appreciate your time, and I know you've got work soon.
Sure.
Round 5, another close game, 65 win to 63 loss on the Eldar. So, my God, 2 points in it. Give this man a break, right? You've gone 3 back-to-back. It's usually this section between round 2 to round 4 or round 3 to round 5 where you just get super tight games. Everybody's in it to win it. So the list is another Eldari, Yvrane's Revenge it's called. It's got Death Jester Farseer, Illic, I love Illic, the Incarn, the Yvrane, Guardian, Hornet, Rangers, a big 10-man squad, so Illic goes, reactive moves, lone op, blah, blah, blah. Voidweaver, Cabalite Warriors, Mandrakes, Scourges, Venom, so lots of stuff, MSU build, lots of mission play, hence why the score is quite close, because they're just going to score really well, and you've just got to somehow stop them. So, nice and simple. What was your plan, and were there any key moments in the game where, you're the ones that you've explained, where it flipped it?
Yeah, so this one's actually an interesting one, because after the game, we didn't want to replay it, but there was he misplayed a rule on one of his Dark Lances.
Okay.
Specifically, so I'll get to that, to why it was a close game. There was a moment where it became close. It wasn't for the first 3 turns. So Eldar is one of those things where if you disrespect them, and Retaliation Cadre can absolutely disrespect Eldar, you can turn the match on its head, literally on an instant. So turn 1, I got first turn on Linchpin, which always sucks. But what I did with the Piranha is I boxed his Illic unit in. He played kind of aggressive with Illic and the Rangers. I boxed him in so that basically he couldn't move past the Piranha on the corner of the board. So Illic is stuck going in one direction, and that's sideways.
Yeah.
So I set it up so that I could trap him in turn 1s that unit couldn't do. It's such an annoying unit to deal with. I said, I'm not going to deal with that unit. It's going to die turn 1 and turn 2 because it has 5 up invulns. I probably can't kill it in 1 turn. And that's exactly what I did. So once that unit was out of the way by boxing it in, going, cool, well, I'm going to deploy these units so that if I move 5 inches, you can only go sideways 6 inches. I still get to shoot you turn 1 no matter what. Right. And I picked up like 7 to 8 Rangers turn 1 and tank shocked for another 2 and just kind of over 2 turns managed to pick them up. But he has to come like throw all his haywire at me now. He deployed very defensively. So turn 1, he really didn't have a lot to respond. So that was 8 points, pretty easy for me. But what eventually he had to come out and stand in the middle and score points, right? So on turn 2, I kind of punished a Venom. He responded to So here's the best part about broadsides. Guess who has a 4-up against haywire?
Broadside. Finally, the special rule works.
Right? So I'm like, well, I'm just going to throw my broadsides out because all you've got is haywire, right? I'm like, your dark lances aren't in position to shoot them. So you shoot me back. I don't care. You do like 6 wounds. Oh, cool. I take 3. Whatever, right? And so what happened is he dark lances my Riptide that had shot at one of the Star Weavers. And so at the time he strand of faded the dark lance, and I'd asked him, can you do that? He was sure. I didn't have time to go look it up. Turns out you can't. So he puts the Riptide on 6 wounds, which was very important because he hits and wounds twice on the following turn, to where he kills the Riptide. The Riptide explodes, does 6 mortals to the Ghost Keel, does like 2 mortal wounds somewhere else, but now puts the Ghost Keel, who's got a blank and 2 wounds left. He can die from haywire where he wasn't going to the turn now. He jumps his Yinkarn, wipes the Enforcer unit, and then I lose the Ghost Keel because he hits and wounds 3 times with the haywire, right, on force, right? And it just kind of goes like, well, shit. The game just suddenly became very close. Well, after the game, figured out, hey, you can't actually do that. We didn't re-roll the die to see whether or not he does 8 damage to a Riptide. I said, hey, man, I won. Let's leave it at that, right? Learn from your mistakes. Can't do that again, right? And so the game probably shouldn't have been that close.
Fair.
But I let that sleeping dog lie. But it does go to show if he had rolled that natty 6, and that does happen, like, I was aware of the possibility of it, right? Because I kept throwing him shit, so that if he jumped, he's going to, like, kill a Ghost Keel, or he just kills stealth suits, right? That's fine with me, right? And then, but just goes to show you, Eldar still can, like, a good Yinkarn jump, can still absolutely face tank you, and it hurts.
So there is, and I'm gonna be a bit cheeky here and be like, Jason, man, that sounds like a skill issue. You've got a stratagem, bro, that you could spend 2 CP on and just change the blow up to a 1 if you want. Why didn't you do that, Jason? Did you not have the CP? Did you not manage your CP for it? Come on, man.
I know, right? Right?
To be fair, the only reason I joke about that, the only reason I put Yankee chain is because I always forget about that stratagem. Unless I have something that's in their face that wants to blow up, and then I remember the stratagem, but then I always think, I'm not going to blow up, boom. I wish I'd have done that stratagem now to make it a 1.
It's one of those options that, like, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. We all know it's not worth 2 CP, but, like, it's always like hindsight's 20/20.
Well, yeah,
and because of course, I rolled 6 wounds on the Ghost Keel. If I only roll 4, he lives at a wound, and he didn't have CP to tank shock me, so he probably wasn't going to kill me. Yeah. Right? So it's just like, ugh.
It's when it's when your tactician, your tactical brain goes, nah, it's never going to happen. You're like, that is sound logic. It happens. You're there going, bro, but then your brain goes, well, you should have just used that stratagem. It's like, bro! Yep. Oh, man. Yep. So, yeah, I like what you did there about, like, look, after the fact, mistakes happen. It clearly wasn't intentional, but, you still won the game. It was tight, but I appreciate that it probably wouldn't have been as tight as that if he'd have played it correctly. So, round 5, you've squeaked out a win. You've had a little bit of controversy in terms of it could have easily been a loss, with a misplayed rule. And now it's go time. It's the last round. and you must have had a smile on your face because when you saw the pairings of Blood Angels, you're like, yes, where everyone else would be like, oh no, not Blood Angels, you're like, get in.
Yeah, but Tariq is a great guy. I love making saves. We went to dinner with him the night before, and we were sitting next to each other, and he's looking at me. He's like, Jason, I just do not want to play against you tomorrow, right? So he goes 5-0, and he looks at me and he's like, you won, didn't you, Jason? He's just like shaking his head, right? On that table layout, it is so bad for the Blood Angels Tau matchup. Is just so he one of his teammates plays Retaliation Cadre, and the night before he's like, Jason, if I go first and we play, I'm just deploying my whole army and I'm just throwing it at you.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm gonna do. And that is exactly what he did.
Your relationship with this guy sounds a lot like my relationship with Nassim. Last big LGT, we were there in an Indian restaurant just eating in separate tables, and I looked at Nassim and I was like, Nassim, I don't want to play you tomorrow. He was like, ah, and then he's eating, and then I hear this, and look, it turns over, and I was like, ah. And they're going, oh no! Round 4 of LGT, me and Nassim on a list that he had Eldar when it was filth, and I was like, oh no, why?
It's just like that. So, if you want to run through the list, please, by all means.
So, the Blood Angels, it's Captain with Jump Pack, Hand Flamer? Question mark. You got Dante, Judicia, Lamates, your standard 5-man Assault Intercessor squads, but not with Jump Packs. Interesting. But then you got 1 Assault Intercessor with Jump Pack, 3 units of Jump Pack ones, a Bald Predator. The Bald Predator is good because it can advance and flamer infantry units. Good for Overwatch. You got a 3-man unit of Blade Guard veterans, a Death Company Dreadnought with heavy flamers, 10 Death Company with Jump Packs with the typical Infernal Pistols Power Fists, Infiltrator Squad, Sanguinary Guard of 10 with the swords and 2 Power Fists and 10 Infernal Pistols, Scout Squad, and a Caladius Assassin. So not quite the usual Blood Angels list that I'm used to seeing, especially with Manny Chima and just MSU bodies everywhere. But obviously, this has got a little bit more of a toolkit approach, and obviously, he's done really well with it. He knows how to utilize the list perfectly because he was 5-0 at this point. So for you, same question, approach, and what was the defining moments in the game?
Yeah, so the great thing about Blood Angels is you can sit there and put all of your models at 24.1 and then just look your opponent in the eye and be like, cool, you're never getting to fight me this turn. Right? That's part about that matchup, right? And I was like, well, I'm just going to deploy almost everybody, right? The only thing I held back with the Fusion Blasters, just because sometimes it's nice to have it, I can demand where they're going to go. Or Blood Angels players like to leave their home objective unprotected. And a bunch of Fusion Blasters do good work on 5 Assault Intercessors. So I'm going to go steal your home all game, right? So we had talked about it. He's like, Jason, he's like, if I go first, I'm just going to advance everything. The only thing he didn't have on the table were the Sane Guard at the time. I think the Death Company Dreadnought, right? So he holds to his promise. He gets first turn. I have everything, like I said, 24.1. It's Terraform. So he advances everything that's not a Scout or a JPI, starts terraforming all 3 objectives. There's Death Company on my front door, and I've got 1,300 points of Blood Angels in no man's land, literally 6 inches away from me. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm up to the challenge. So I think I took 10 minutes to sit there and plan my turnout before I even did my command phase.
Yeah.
Right. And because the activations are so important there, because the second a Death Company unit model with 2 dudes touches anything, I can just kiss them goodbye.
Yeah.
Right. They're just gone with the wind. Right. So that was priority number 1. Picking up all the terraforming units was priority number 2. And anything else I could kind of pick beyond that was the next priority. Right. And that's kind of how I ordered my turn. I set the missile unit up to be within 6 of 3 units. As I said, he just came at me. So I was like, well, I'm not going to pick him up. I'm just going to move him right at you. And that's exactly what they did. I would say that the opening shot defined the entire game. right, Death Company with Lamarty's are -1 damage. So the best option to that is a 4 damage Riptide. So I was debating. I prefer saving it. I was thinking of whether or not I was going to do it on the Fire Knife Squad. Right, he's probably going to Armor of Contempt against it. I'm gonna kill like 5 guys with sustain 2 probably, and that's just how it'll work out. Right. It's like, let's just throw 2 Riptides at this unit. So the first Riptide gets within 6, so now he's AP 4, right? He's strength 9, AP 4, 4 damage. So it's 3 damage against Lombardi's squad. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sustain 2 here. Get the double 6s. With the built-in reroll 1s on the hit roll, hit 10 times, wound 10 times. He didn't AOC because he's like, at this point, if this pops off, they're dead, right? Doesn't make any 6-up to stop him, right? The double 6-up. So with 1 weapon activation, I killed 10 Death Company. That's the first shooting attack of the game. And he looks at me and he goes, "That's probably game, isn't it, Jason?" I'm like, I'm going to be honest, man, it probably is.
Yeah.
But I respected him for taking the bold choice of just throwing everybody at me, right? Because he plays a lot of 40k too, and his team is Red Cat player. He's played this matchup 9 times. Yeah. If he just drip feeds me stuff, I kill it. He scores 5 points on his home objective, or 6 points or whatever if he terraforms, and I score 12 every turn, and that's basically what was going to happen, right? And so I respect him for the move he did, right? Absolute legend, right? The stupid Death Company Dreadnought picks up 700 points in 1 activation when it finally hits. And then I kill with a broadside, and I'm like, I hate that model. So glad he's disappearing, right? Because he goes from 1 unit. Do you want me to roll on your stealth suits, Jason? No, I'll pick him up. Right, on to the next one. No, I'll pick him up.
No, that role, I like what you said there about the taking 10 minutes, because I've been in those situations where, as much as the public see, top players as figureheads and be like, oh, they just have it all planned out and stuff like that, we still get nervous like little school children asking a girl to a dance, right? When we're going into that last moment, defining moment, and be like, okay, I'm in a shot now to potentially win this event or do really well. Do not fuck it up. Do not fuck it up. Do not fuck it up. And the fact that you took a moment to really utilize your time, knowing that because he pushed everything, it's not going to come down to who's got 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be defined on turn 1 to turn 2. So you've taken a step back, you've planned everything, and then you've gone bosh. And it's almost like your Riptide was in sync with you and went, I'm going to channel the patient hunter of the Kion style, and just went bosh.
Oh yeah, even hold everything back. Oh yeah, by far when I first started playing Red Cat, I was like sustain 1, sustain 2 on units of 11 or more, or whatever. Right? You don't realize until you really start putting in practice how many 10-man units with an attached character there are.
Yep. That
just exist. Like the World Eaters matchup. You have 10 Corn Berserkers and Karn and a Rhino.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then you got
right?
You got a Votann with 10 Hearthguard with the Iron Here champion. Yeah. You've got any GSC unit. You've got Blood Angels with Dante.
Every game. Somehow it comes up every game. And the stars happen to align here. I usually hit 4 times. The Riptide is usually where the math kind of works out. With reroll 1s, it's 5, right? And sometimes you get a 6 in there. I didn't expect the double 6s. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll kill 7 from this activation is kind of what I expected, right? With the Fusion Blaster, I was like, I'll get 6 or 7. I didn't expect to get all 10. Now, Lamarty's took the Fusion Blaster and Missile Pods like a champ. So I had to work a little harder there, but it was a very good kind of turn. I was nervous turn 1. I looked at, before I even started rolling dice, I was like, all right, Tarek, are you ready? Because I'm not. So overall, I 3 very close games. Knights and Guard probably being the hardest matchups, just faction wise. And of course, I went second, only 2 games, and the 1 game I wanted to go first, I didn't get to go first in, right, as it happens to work out. But this Might Club guys threw on a great event, and I had a fantastic time with all the buddies out there.
So one thing, just to finalise our lovely conversation, is that to highlight a few things from a consistency point of view and a performance point of view, and I always look at these as being key indicators to someone's ability to play, not just Tau, but the game. It's breaking down your actual kind of points that you scored, and when you look at it's not just that, it's the strength of schedule and everything like that. So if you look at the actual breakdown, everyone just focuses on the wins and how you podium, but you had strength of schedule, so most of your opponents were winning 4 games. So, from that round 2 to obviously basically from 2 to 5 or 6, like you had a slobber knocker of you had to work for everything. So you had a high strength of schedule, your battle points. You went first in a few missions that obviously hinder your ability to score in the high 90s, like you mentioned about Linchpin and Scorched. With when I look at the detail, that can definitely hurt. Going second with Tau is easy in my opinion, because you just go, hey, secret mission or points, and then you get to But going first is a little bit trickier. So you definitely didn't have an easy run, and I think the other thing that obviously, not just from a skill point of view, you've gone undefeated, you've won. And then there is also a little bit of luck as well, and this is not to kind of play your victory, but there's a little bit of luck when it comes to pairings and also how other people do. And I believe there was a draw that happened with the other players.
Orcs and Grey Knights drew the round before, so it basically meant I could only play Blood Angels as an undefeated player. Otherwise, the Orc player, I don't know him personally. I understand he's very good. Had 100 Gretchen. And a bunch of other, he was playing the mech, mech detachment. I was just reading that the night before, and I'm like, I do not want to fight this. Because I'm going to have to learn on the fly how to play this matchup, because I've never fought this detachment.
Yeah, no, because obviously I don't know how they did their what was important outside of wins, whether it was battle points or whether it was win percentage. But obviously the Grey Knights, Donovan had scored with Grey Knights very highly. 572 battle points out of 600 is insane, but Grey Knights score very well. And the Orc list sounds like a menace. 100 Gretchen, what the hell? Again, 100 Gretchen. Shock Horror, his average is 548 points out of 600. So when you look
That's a high scoring list.
Yeah. When you look at the Grey Knights player with 572 divided by 6, he's averaging 95.33 per game. And then the Orcs, 548 divided by 6 is averaging 91.33 per game because of the list. So, hats off to you though, mate. Really proud, and I think you've definitely inspired a lot of my community because they've been talking about your list and, trying to dissect it. It's always fun watching all of the nerds online being like, oh my god, give me the list. What is it? How does it work? So, an innovator, and obviously it's done really well. So, honestly, mate, really well done.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
So let's wrap up. So, where can people find you, man? And do you have any kind of affiliation with various clubs or events? And what do you want to plug?
Yeah, so I'm one of the captains for Team Xenos Petting Zoo, and I do with some of the mates on the team. We have an event company. So if you're out here in Southern California, or we are expanding soon here to Nevada. So if you're on the West Coast, look out for those events near you. And our company is Green Banner Event Company. Okay, and we run leagues across cities in the United States. Right now, we're focusing on San Diego, Los Angeles. We've opened in Denver. Hopefully, we're moving to New York and some other areas of the East Coast soon. You can find that on greenbannereventco.com. Check us out. Where we have a TTS league too, so if you're interested in that, I'm one of the administrators. But everyone has extremely enjoyed playing so far, so we'd love to have you.
Perfect. And please send me those links, both the website and if you've got a Discord or anything like that you want to promote, just send me the links and I'll put it in the description below. So people watching this, go into the description, click on the link and support these guys. And the one thing that I really like is that and kind of feel for people out in the States is that, the events, you have to travel quite a lot. Whereas in the UK, I can just roll out of bed and go to an RTT or a major, around the corner. So I think more communities in the US and being able to kind of promote and actually create their own events is definitely something that the American community needs more of. So absolutely go and give these guys the support and love and join in. From me, if you like this kind of content, please, do the usual. Come on, let me suck up to you. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. And if you want to know how to be better with your Tau game, I'm the guy to talk to. And obviously, Jason, look, we're innovators. We've got lists, and I'm sure, obviously, people can find you in Discord and ask you about your list. If you're a part of mine, are you part of my Discord?
I am not. Maybe I should after this.
Maybe I should just aim this at you. Join my Discord, man. Come on. No, I'll send you to the other link. Just come and join, because it's a really well knit community. We're really positive, and if there's something that you want to learn about Tau, it's the place to be. So if you want to check out more, the links, descriptions are everything below. You've heard me say it a million times. If you want to up your game, I'm currently sitting at the top of the throne. I know what I'm on about, and if you want to up your game, come and join and have a look at the subscription tiers. There's a budget for everybody, and I will definitely elevate your game plan. There's plenty more to come over the next couple of months. So, Jason, thank you so much for your time, your energy. It's been a pleasure getting to know you rather than just seeing your name on the rankings. It's finally good to meet you. And when's your next event, buddy? What are you planning?
A Champs Cup next week, baby.
Oh, nice, bro.
Team Purple Cobras. Get ready for the...
This is also Team Purple Cobras, or there's the bit from, what was it? I can't remember. Dodgeball. Dodgeball, it's like that.
I've got the whole outfit. I've got the white Goodman. I ordered it earlier this week. We all have headbands. I have all the little armor get up. Oh, I'm excited. I'm gonna be shaven, so everyone there gets to see my West Coast California ass with a handlebar mustache. It'll be great.
All you need now is some 80s, 70s, 80s gym wear, and just be like, this is pinnacle fitness from a man right now. Yes.
Go Google White Goodman. Go take a look at the handlebar and the soul patch. Yeah. Oh, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Sounds fantastic, mate. Well, honestly, good luck for that one. I mean, my next event. Oh, hang on a minute. You've won a golden ticket, surely?
Yes. Yeah.
Please tell me you're going to WCW.
I am. I'll be there.
Same, bro. So
right on.
We're gonna see each other at WCW in Atlanta, so that's gonna be great, and we'll definitely get some little bit of content and videos and meet again, beers all around, mate. So it's gonna be great.
Great. I love it. Awesome.
So good luck in the team champ, man. I'm sure you'll actually deliver the greater good. And from me and Jason, thank you all for watching, and we're gonna bid you adieu. So for the greater good, everyone. See you later.